Hello, and welcome back to the Douglas Fir Association and our continuing discussions with me, Luke, and Matt from Matticus Tattooi of the world of Twin Peaks. We're now into season 2 territory, and we kind of got a bit over eager, I have to say. We did the pilot, well, not the pilot, the first episode of season 2, which is like an hour and a half long, and then we did another couple of episodes. And then one night we did 4 episodes. We just went fucking nuts. And for good reason, because I could see the episode on the horizon. I was really keen to get to it, both for myself and to hear what Matt thought about it. So we're 7 episodes in to season 2 now. Before we get to jump ahead to the really big reveal that we just saw, the first episode of season 2, which was... It's hard to remember now because I'm so focused on the last episode we watched, but what were your thoughts on that? The big hour and a half kind of getting everything back in and, continuing the mystery and specifically the ending with the quasi-reveal of Bob in the train car and that very striking vision that Ronette Pulaski had. And you see her point of view of Bob, killing Laura, which is just...
it was
spine-chilling.
Yeah, it was an amazing episode. It's definitely up there, one of my favourites. I think that and the pilot are just, they're like feature length films, and they're such great visual, almost visual essays to the series that they're so good. There's obviously so much to break down, and like the stuff that's happened since has kind of overwritten a bit some of my memory of that initial episode, but. That train scene, in the train cart, it's just... I remember messaging you, in fact, on WhatsApp pretty much after, and I was like, Bob! It's Bob!
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the first sort of reveal we get, isn't it? That, he's the killer.
Well, yeah, that was the thing, because you were like, oh, so we know who the killer is now, and I'm like, sure. Yeah, okay, let's go with that.
That's it. But then that sort of made me question it in my head. Is it him, or is it something to do, with him witnessing what had just gone on? I don't know. So I was like, then you saying that, in fact, actually helped. Like saying because it made me then think, well, maybe it's not.
Well, I remember when I saw it and I was like, okay, so we've now seen the killer. And I kind of, I kind of got suckered in by that. But yeah, and I think that was a Lynch directed episode, and it just feels like it when you get Lynch in to direct one. Yeah. It feels just that little bit more polished, that little bit more effective, I think, visually. And it's, for me, the more striking image of that last sequence is Laura looking up with like blood all over her face, and she's like almost grinning, like she's enjoying it. And it's like, what the fuck? Like it's dark,
Absolutely. Yeah. I definitely feel like his episodes are more cinematic.
Yeah.
Obviously, because he's used to directing feature films. So, but yeah, I love when he directs an episode, and so far he's just not let us down whatsoever. I see they've all been absolutely amazing episodes.
Yeah, so at this point, I kind of want to just dive into the behind the scenes a little bit, 'cause that's a nice segue. I can't remember if I talked about it in one of our previous discussions, but I definitely said to you that the whole thing about season 2 dropping off a bit is that Lynch went off to make Wild at Heart with Nicolas Cage and Laura Dern. And, I've read so many times that that's what it was. And even in Lynch's own book, it's talked about. But it isn't the case. He went to do Wild at Heart during season 1. And I was like, huh? But the timing is just, it has to be that. Because by the time season 2 was in production, Wild at Heart was already out. So... the story goes, he shot the pilot in 1989, then he went straight into Wild at Heart. And then Twin Peaks season 1, it's like 7 episodes, so it was manageable for him to, I guess, maybe juggle, both at the same time.
Yeah.
When it came to season 2, there's pressure from the studio now, like, show us the killer. And Lynch did not want to do this. Lynch and Frost, Mark Frost, the co-creators, they were not happy about giving it away early. They wanted to really prolong it. And even have the murder mystery be a backdrop to the characters of Twin Peaks coming out and all sorts of other stories.
Yeah.
So I think the general consensus is also Lynch, by his own admission, was a little bit out of his depth maybe with a 22 episode season this time around with season 2, and it's like a massive, workload. And also he made the kind of rumors he kind of fell out of love of the story once the mystery was forced to be kind of revealed with who Laura's killer is. Even some of the cast were a little bit kind of felt betrayed that he kind of, slinked away, and, so there's all sorts of stuff that go along with that. But I just want to clarify that Wild at Heart story, because I just was doing some digging and I realized that was the actual kind of story. Because I'd always thought it was the Wild at Heart thing. But either way, we won't talk too much about the the season 2 drop off, because we're still in it and there's still really good stuff to come. But I wanted to kind of just clarify that, I suppose. Another really random thing, I remember you asking me about the opening credits and how you were like, is the sawmill important? And I said something like, oh yeah, that shot of the saw and everything, you never see that again. You see it in every single fucking episode, so it shows how much I know. Like, every time a new episode starts, it's the fucking saw coming down again. I'm like, oh my god, I look an idiot now. But in my mind's eye, that was only in the first episode, and then it's just the Welcome to Twin Peaks sign every single episode. But so I was wrong on that. So I have made a few bits of kind of notes here on the beginning. So the opening sequence, Cooper's dead. Not dead. He's left for dead, shot, and the giant appears. What are your thoughts on this opening sequence with the giants, and also the old man?
Oh, it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, we hadn't had a dream sequence since the first season. Obviously, the second episode, is it? We get that.
Yeah, well, second, third, early on, yeah.
So this was again like another thing for me where it harkens back to that dream sequence, and that kind of where you're sort of getting a real feel for how strange this town is, and like things that happening to people. I absolutely loved it. Especially love the old man that comes in and talks to him and just sort of shuffles, and he tells him to hang up. He hangs up the phone, doesn't he? That's it.
Well, you just hear Andy on the other side, like, Cooper. I'll just put the phone down.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic, man. Love that scene. And then we get the famous line, "The owls are not what they seem."
The owls are not what they seem.
Yeah, fantastic stuff, man. Really love that.
And you say dream sequence, and it's a bit more ambiguous, this one, because it's coming into the world of Twin Peaks, and so is it a dream? And then the ring and everything, and the clues that Cooper. I love how like Cooper's been shot, and the really random detail of the wood tick. They're like, I was just pulling up my bulletproof vest to catch a wood tick, and that's why the bullet hit me. And then they find the fucking wood tick with the bullet. Hell of a way to kill a tick. And then Cooper's just like, no, I'm gonna. Obviously, like, they needed Cooper to be like, going around and kind of doing his thing, so they just had him act like really like the really protracted scene in the hospital with him and Truman, where he's trying to get the chair up to sit next to Ronette Pulaski, and he's like just leaning really uncomfortably, like he's trying to get the instructions on the chair, and it's just, you're about to get this really serious moment, and it's just kind of undercut by this really, offbeat humor that Lynch is very fond of. And I can see people and that's the whole thing with the old man, where he just keeps coming back in and just like, I remember watching that with Connie, and she was going nuts. She's like, this is like, what is going, like, it's just so boring. Like, it's just, why does he keep coming back in? Why do they keep doing that? It's not funny.
So I absolutely love that bit. I thought it was fascinating, and just the way he writes his characters and directs them. It's just fantastic. I can almost imagine that being a couple of takes, and he just keeps coming back in and just doing this, and he just kept the whole thing.
It does, yeah. It feels a bit like that, doesn't it? It feels like it just was the old man wasn't getting the memo, and Lynch loved it or something. Which there's certainly a precedent for that, him keeping in things. And so the giant, I love that sequence and the kind of unfurling more of the lore. The owls are not what they seem, and then Briggs coming in the next episode and telling him, look, I can't tell you exactly what I work with the government, but I look at deep space messages. And it's all gibberish, but there's your name. and it's around the time that the giant visited. So now you're thinking, oh shit, what's going on there?
Yeah.
A lot of intrigue with that sort of supernatural element. Ed and Norma, and also so the Ed, Norma, and Nadine. I really and again, it's another instance of Lynch putting the humor in there. I really like the monologue from Big Ed, kind of telling us what happened with Nadine when they were, and why he married Nadine and why him and Norma didn't work out. So it was great to get. I'd completely forgotten that backstory, so that was really nice.
Yeah.
But then you got Albert just stood next to him, just smirking and just like. And it's just like, oh man, come on! But like, I like Albert. I find him funny, even though he's a massive dick. But
yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on that? The Nadine storyline as we've seen it unfold so far, because it's taken a turn.
Yeah. So, I think I messaged you just after I watched that scene where she's in the hospital bed and she wakes up.
Yeah.
And we obviously discover that she's digressed again, but now back in time to thinking she's in high school being a cheerleader. And it made me think twice about it, actually, because I initially found it quite funny, which I imagine is how you're supposed to feel. But when you said you found it quite sad, it made me think about it, and it was like, yeah, it is quite sad, actually. The fact that she was already unwell.
Yeah.
She's took a load of sleeping tablets to, so the pain would go away, and now she's gone back to a point where she was happy, but she's not her. So it is really, really sad. And I know you said that you didn't particularly like that scene for its humor.
Yeah, I'm still conflicted on it. I wondered if I would have a more concrete opinion on it now, but it's, she really sells it well. Like it feels like what's happening is really happening, but Big Ed is kind of just like gurning his face to put the humor into it and stuff, and it strikes a weird tone to me. But I guess it is supposed to be a mix of both, and Twin Peaks does often toe the line of humor and genuine kind of like tragedy, maybe, or drama, and so I don't know. Yeah, and as that storyline continues, again, it is played for laughs a lot, but I do find it in its own way quite sad. I don't know. Maybe I'm just taking it too seriously. I don't know. That's just me.
Have you seen Wes Craven's People Under the Stairs?
No.
Well, the characters as they are now, with her as a cheerleader and him just being, as he was, that's kind of reminded me of the two characters in that they play a mom and dad, or something else if you've seen the film.
Okay.
And the two characters as they are, they're like, she's like really bouncy and stuff. She just really reminded me of those two characters as they are in People Under the Stairs. Definitely recommend watching that, because I think you'll get a kick out of it, to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really sad, isn't it? Just I was kind of hoping that she would wake up normal, or at least I don't know. I was just hoping better for her, because she was in such a sad state before, and now she doesn't know she was in a sad state, but she's in a worse state than she was, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, and then there's this weird kind of side effect where she has superhuman strength as well, which again just leads into the, I do find that kind of amusing, but like, like when she's holding the chocolate milkshake and it just explodes in her hand, and she says, "There goes another one," or something like that. Okay. One of my all-time favorite Twin Peaks moments, I think it's in that first episode, is in the diner with Bobby and his dad, Major Briggs. This is when I went, oh, the guy who plays Bobby actually can act, and do a really good job.
Yeah.
But also, that's when Major Briggs clicks for me. It's just such a beautiful sequence, and he just gives this monologue to Bobby about how I had a vision about you, not just a dream, but a vision. And, I remember being really emotional when I first watched it. Now, it still is, but, it's not like he's saying anything overly sentimental. It's like, it feels to me like a father-son relationship that really doesn't have a lot of connectivity to it. And he's really trying to make that bridge. So it's not like he's sat there saying, son, I really love you, or whatever. but in his own way. Like I have a vision of you being happy and content, you know. And it's just you can feel. I just feel like a bridge is kind of made there between them without
Yeah.
really saying it overtly, and I really like that. I don't know. What do you think about that scene?
Yeah, well, Bobby being the bit of a tearaway character that he is, and the dad
Mm,
obviously being a war general, whatever he is, Briggs is it, yeah.
yeah,
Um, you would expect that relationship to be quite rocky because he's obviously very regimented and
yeah,
very law abiding as such, an army man. And Bobby being the tearaway that he is. That's a very sweet moment for me because they're not two characters that in real life necessarily get on, I don't think. But that moment is really special because it's such a bond between father and dad, despite of what they are. And it's just a really sweet moment. I thought the same way as you. It was quite an emotional moment for me watching it for the first time. Yeah, I really really liked it. Yeah,
yeah. It's and this feels like there's a bit of an interesting arc for Bobby, which is going back and forth a little bit because he's totally taking advantage of the whole Leo situation.
yeah,
And that was another thing when you I think maybe when we recorded you were like, well, Leo's dead now, and I'm like,
yeah.
well, yeah, okay, let's just move on.
So we've now got Leo, who's been shot and killed.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
I assume dead. I'm pretty sure he does, isn't
he got shot the first time by Shelley,
he? Yeah,
which was yeah, good on her. Like I felt like that was
yeah.
it's how do you feel about Leo? Because I've wanted to say the whole time that like his acting gets a lot better in the second season, but I didn't want to spoil that he's in the second season or why his acting is better. But I do genuinely think he does a lot better with a lot less.
Yeah,
And at times I almost feel like when he's obviously anyone who's watching this has seen Twin Peaks, but when he's sat there kind of a vegetable like dribbling all over himself, I kind of feel like shit. It feels like they've written this just to like punish the poor guy because he wasn't very good in the
yeah,
first season. But I don't know. But it creates some interesting moments of tension. When Shelley and Bobby are like making out in front of him, and then
yeah.
he just looks over her, and then she freaks out. Like it's some interesting. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the Leo situation?
I've got a prediction that he's still got a part to play in this. Otherwise, why keep him around? Um, but it's kind of sad, isn't it, that they've kept him there as almost like a piece of furniture. Um,
I don't feel as much sympathy with him as I do.
yeah, no, no, it was a bad character, yeah, but I don't know, it just seems pointless to keep him around for no reason. So I still feel like he has some part to play.
Yeah.
Obviously we had the reveal with a boot, so maybe that was all his part was to play to reveal the boot, but. I don't know. That's just my prediction at the moment. But yeah, he was a shit character. His acting ain't great. Um, but yeah, it just seems pointless to keep him there for no reason. So as I say, I do think he's still got a reason for being there as such.
I do like this the tension it adds to Shelley and Bobby's relationship, where
Yeah,
that they think, oh, this is going to be like our meal ticket of we'll just collect all the disability money, but then it ends up being not as much as they thought, and now he's just going to leave her in the lurch, and now their relationship is strained and everything. So I do like the scene when he comes to see her in the hospital, Bobby, and she tells him that she loves him, and he's like, yeah, I guess I love you too. And I'm like, really? That's all you can muster? But then
yeah,
I can kind of see that he's almost surprised by himself that I am actually letting myself like fall in love with someone. I don't know. I like that Bobby. There's a bit of a redemption arc there that I like that makes him a hell of a lot more interesting than the barking teenager we had
yeah,
in the very first episode. Where I was just
yeah.
like, what is this? What is this guy like? It's fucking
Absolutely. And I think he's actually an actor that's improved throughout the show so far.
yes, definitely. I would say so.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Audrey has gone on a whole odyssey of her own. Obviously, we left her at the end of season one at One Eyed Jacks. Obviously, I'm very glad that Benjamin Horn got whisked away quickly from that room because,
Yeah.
you know. So yeah, what are your thoughts on that? The whole Audrey, we've got up to the point now where she's been rescued by Cooper and everything, but it was
Yeah.
drawn out for quite a few episodes of her being kind of trapped at One Eye Jacks and then eventually drugged, and it got quite dark actually.
Absolutely, yeah. So knowing what we know now, obviously Cooper finds a letter under the bed and discovers that she's at One Eye Jack's. Um, or I think it leads up to that anyway. But yeah, knowing what we know now, she's obviously told her dad that she knows, and that she's told him that she was the girl on the bed.
Yeah.
Quite a disturbing reveal, obviously
Mm.
for
I like that scene because and that was like that's the episode where we find out Laura's killer and they're trying very hard to point us our suspicions in the direction of Benjamin Horn
yes,
and she's she's there with him and you can tell he's like, oh, Audrey, and then she's like, I know about Ronette, I know about Laura, I know about this. You almost slept with me, and he's put
yeah,
in such a situation of holy fuck that when she says, did you sleep with Laura, all he's got to say for himself is yes,
yeah,
and that's a pretty, honestly, powerful moment. But like he's completely caught with his pants down there,
yeah,
and and that was interesting to see for a guy who always seems to have all his cards very close to his chest, and
absolutely.
that was a really good scene. And then when he says that he loved Laura, and it's like holy shit, the fucking layers of this girl is like, it's like an onion.
That's it. But yeah, we've also had Jacques Renard's brother. I can't remember his name.
Jean Reno, yeah, the great
Jean
Michael
Renard. Yeah,
Parks. I really
yeah,
like him. He's a good
yeah,
actor, and I like I like him more than Jacques Reno as a villain.
yeah.
He's a bit more suave and capable.
Yeah, so we've had him introduced as well. And he was obviously the go-between between uh One Eye Jacks and I went to say Jackie Treehorn then. I don't know where that name's come from. Is that from, that's from the Big Lebowski? I don't know why that came into my head.
It's an alternate version of Twin Peaks, a different dimension. Yeah.
Benjamin Horn, Jackie Treehorn. How's that called? Horn? Yeah. Okay, right. So we get him going between Benjamin Horn and One Eye Jacks.
Yeah.
And obviously he doesn't know that she's at One Eye Jacks, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that whole dynamic of him going between, and so it'd be interesting to see where that character ends up going.
Yeah. Yeah. True. I it's like again this is like my catchphrase now. There's so much that's going on, obviously, and it's gonna be impossible to recap like every little detail and things. But I find it interesting in those situations like Cooper going to One Eye Jacks to kind of infiltrate and stuff, taking the bureau's money, and then when he goes across into Canada to rescue Audrey, and he's kind of going into like business for himself, and he's kind of stepping outside of the his usual his orders basically as an FBI agent, and so like we're now seeing Cooper go a little bit rogue, which is kind of interesting. But it really shows how much he cares about people, I think, and
Yeah,
that he is kind of willing to go that extra mile.
I think he felt quite a bit of guilt as well about going there, and obviously leading her there, because she said she saw him there, didn't she? I think it was in the letter. Was it in the letter? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
I mean, she's really there because she's trying to impress Cooper.
Yeah,
She's kind
yeah,
of trying to crack the case, and she gets very far, but she eventually it's the point of no return, and she's stuck there. Um, I do like the when they eventually get to One Eye Jacks. It's quite a cool little espionage type scene where
yeah,
Cooper and Truman go in and rescue Audrey, and then they get kind of in a fix, and then out of nowhere Hawk shows up and just fucking
yeah,
throws this knife in the guy's back. Now I love that moment. I knew it was coming. So in that scene, you can actually see him stood at the top of the stairs for like a little bit.
yeah,
So I like that details there on a repeat viewing that you can see that he stood there waiting for the moment to fucking take
yeah,
that guy out. Um, yeah, I like Hawk. He's cool.
yeah. It's a great character.
Yeah. Leland. Suddenly his hair is white and he's
Yeah,
singing show tunes and he's back at work and it's and then the whole like little reveal there that he thinks he knows this Bob character when he was a kid. That,
yeah,
that really got me like, oh shit, what what's this Bob thing? Like what the hell? At first I thought, okay, it's some guy who killed Laura, but
Yeah,
now he was there when Leland was a kid. Okay, so is this a, you know, who or what is Bob? You know.
absolutely. Yeah,
Mm,
that whole reveal, which we can now obviously talk about because we've seen it.
sure.
Um, just disturbing and awe inspiring. It's ridiculous how good that scene is when he's faced with Cheryl at the end. And the scene where the mother's just crawling down the stairs, and then we cut
Yeah.
to Leland in the living room looking in the mirror. It's just so disturbing, and it's one of the creepiest moments not only ever seen in the show, but like ever. And there's another scene where, which I think you told me is one of the most infamous scenes, is where Bob's crawling over the sofa.
Yes, yes, I'm glad we didn't forget about that. So that's when Maddie is at Donna's, I think, and she sat
Yes,
there alone, and he just appears on the other side of the living room. It's just so unsettling. It's a very simple thing, but
yeah,
it's the point of view shot. It's the way that he moves. It's the way that he gets closer to the camera. Like, I don't know. It's just a perfect marriage of like doing stuff on camera. I don't
yeah,
know, because I just feel like that could so easily not be effective. Okay, Frank, you're just gonna walk towards the camera and crawl over the
yeah,
sofa. You know how, but it really is such a creepy. And
yeah,
I think it's because like it doesn't stop. Like his face gets right up into the camera, and then
yeah.
Maddie just starts screaming. Um, so yeah, you're getting echoes of him leading up to that reveal with Leland.
Yeah, so
Um,
the white hair and obviously knowing him as a kid, and then
mm,
we hear from the one armed man that he's been taken over by a is it a spirit or can't remember the exact term he used, but yeah, then we sort of all the pieces start coming together that Bob isn't an actual person, is an entity, I think
an
was the right word.
entity, yeah.
Yeah. And that, Bob could really be anyone. And obviously we know the show points it towards what's his name again?
Benjamin Horn.
Benjamin Horn, Jesus
We're
Christ.
gonna drill that name into you. I think that's the one name that you're getting
I
caught on.
think it is, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so the show's leading us towards it being Benjamin Horn.
If it helps you, his brother's name, who brings him the sandwiches and all that, is Jerry. So Ben and Jerry, Ben and Jerry,
Oh yeah,
Ben
yeah,
Horn.
Ben and Jerry.
That scene with the one armed man at the sheriff's department when I think there's an earlier scene as well where he's in the toilets and he's freaking out because he needs his
Yeah,
medication and stuff, and then the clues start coming together. Without chemicals, he points, and so they get him in the sheriff's station, and then Bob takes over. Was it Bob? Yeah, it is, isn't it? No, wait, who takes over? I forget now. But he gets there's something that he's withholding by taking the drugs, and then yeah. So what? I don't even know.
it's an it's another spirit entirely, isn't it? It's like a different
That's
entity.
right, Mike and Bob.
Yeah,
Yes, okay, yeah.
yeah,
So the one-armed man's name is Philip Gerard. Mike is the spirit that he's holding at bay, and Mike and
that's
Bob
it.
were working together. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Just suddenly got so confused then. But just the way his voice changes when the one-armed man gets taken over by Mike, and through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see. Like, ooh. And then like Cooper's had that dream, and so he knows the rest of that kind of phrase.
yeah.
And it's funny because when I watched that, Connie was watching, and she was kind of like chuckling at when the one-armed man is like, "Ah!" And she's like, oh god. But then once he started talking as Mike, she was just like zoned in.
Yeah,
She got really
it's really
drawn into that.
it's really captivating, isn't it? That whole speech.
Yeah, and I don't think I've mentioned this in one of our videos, but he was literally in the pilot in that one shot in the elevator in the hospital as a reference to, I think, the TV show The Fugitive. They just wanted a one-armed man, and that was it. And then Lynch met him and was like, oh my god, this guy's got a great voice. Let's use him for something. And then
Yeah,
Lynch just wrote the through the darkness of future past, the magician longs to see, and got him to say it. They just, quickly, whatever. And then that became part of the lore, part of the world, and he became a pretty notable character. So I love how Lynch rolls with that stuff and follows the spontaneity of it all. So, what do you think of James Hurley's musical performance in Twin Peaks?
Fantastic.
Just you. Like, oh my god, like it's. I don't know what to make of it still.
Yeah.
And he just sounds. It just, I don't know if it is him actually. I should find that out. But I kind of like the scene when they just love the fact that they're like, right, let's set up some amps and some microphones. Let's get Maddie and Donna like, but I do like the little love triangle that develops and how it's
Yeah.
conveyed with him playing the song and just the looks to Maddie and the way she looks at him. That's good. The song itself is a bit weird. And I have to say, the moment when I think they're in the Palmer house, I think, yeah. So it's James and Maddie, and
Yeah.
they're getting a bit close. And then Donna's there in the front door, and then she runs out like that's it. And then James just like bolts for the door. He slams all this stuff off the table, and he runs
Yeah.
down the street and goes, "Why?" So what do you mean, why? What the fuck do you think? Like, it's not that hard, dude. You're going out with Donna and you're cozying up with someone else. And he's like, why?
So there was that old episode as well where James was in prison, well, in one of the cells, and Donna goes to Maddie and gets Laura's glasses from her, and goes up to the jail, and she's like, she's such a weird character in that respect, but in retrospect, it kind of makes sense because I think she's trying to imitate what Laura was, so that he would kind of fall back in love with her, I guess, or the way that's the way she thought about going about it. I know you said you found that pretty weird, didn't you? That whole Donna thing, but she just completely changed his character for like half an hour in one episode.
Yeah.
It's never really explained why she did it.
No, but you really did call on something there. I think that's probably the intent, and if not a good read, regardless, I think that makes a lot of sense. And she's trying to latch onto him because she can sense maybe he's, he might be having some feelings for Maddie, which compounded with the fact that she looks exactly like Laura makes things even more interesting. And then she gives me a really what's the word? Forward, like a very intense kiss through the bars of the cell. And then he later says to Maddie, it's like she wanted to just have sex with me right there and then. It's like, I didn't get that from that. I thought she was just being like intense, but
So go back to Donna as well. She's now joined the Mills on Wheels scheme, which of course Laura used to do, and she's gone to this old lady's house. And I'd only just remembered about this actually.
Oh yeah,
there's a kid which is the grandson of the woman that she's visiting.
Who looks like Lynch. Like he just looks like a young David Lynch with the hairstyle and everything, and
he's just full on doing proper magic tricks.
Creamed corn. Do you see creamed corn on that plate?
And the old lady points to next door, and she visits a guy called Harold, which is a new character that's introduced. That initial meeting between Harold and Donna, I thought really reminded me of, the Silence of the Lambs where Buffalo Bill opens the door.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
And to Clarice to come in, because obviously it's a similar sort of situation where she's walking into the unknown.
Yeah.
It really reminded me of that, and I wondered if some influence maybe had taken that into the Silence of the Lambs, because it was kind of around the same time.
Yeah, it would have been just before, I think. I can't remember.
Yeah, so with you kind of been putting off the scent about Bob, Harold became my new number one suspect. But again, in retrospect,
that's awesome. I love that.
Again, in retrospect, though, him being a recluse, it couldn't have been possible because he wouldn't have gone out to the train car.
well, that could have been the perfect cover, couldn't it? Harold, he never leaves the house, and it's so funny because in my mind's eye, the Harold storyline is quite a long running one, but we've already gone through the whole arc of Harold.
Yeah.
I like that stuff. He's a very interesting, to use that horrible word, interesting, but there's a interesting cadence about him. He's very odd, peculiar, and yet he's a very attractive man, and so you can see how Donna maybe gets kind of drawn in a bit, and then you're wondering, is she really fully getting kind of into him, or is she just doing it to get Laura's secret second diary, or is she
Yeah.
just doing it to make James jealous? Like, there's lots of stuff at play there, and so they're very interesting scenes whenever they're together.
He's got a very familiar face, and I recognised him, but I couldn't think where from, so I looked him up afterwards. He was in Home Alone 3 as one of the robbers.
Ah, yes, yes, I
Yeah. Sadly passed away last year.
he did.
Yeah.
That's something that we're going to find as we move through this journey. Is that
Yeah.
I'm telling you, since Twin Peaks: The Return finished airing, people were dropping like flies, and it was real. It almost like it felt like a curse, and it just because he was not old, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's
I guess
died
you got to
quite
think
young.
though, a lot of these actors were quite old during the 90s, so
Yeah,
it's age is a bitch.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
But then with him but anyway, so it's a whole other thing. But yeah, the Harold
Yeah.
stuff, um, and it reminded me a little bit of. Have you seen the film? Is it Sex, Lies, and Videotape? Have you seen that?
No, no.
No, so it's James Spader plays this guy who he videotapes women just talking to him and kind of divulging all of their innermost kind of sordid secrets and stuff. It's a very good film. It's a really, really good film. It reminded me of that, but in this sense, he's getting women to tell them stories, and he writes them down as what's he call it, a living novel. Yeah, and he's kind of like you can feel the delicateness of him, like he would
Yeah.
almost crack if you touched him, And
Mm.
so yeah, I like the Harold stuff. It's quite
I ended up really feeling really sorry for him, as at the end, obviously we find out he's hanged himself.
yeah.
But yeah, it kind of feels like if Donna had never gone there, then yeah, he wouldn't have died. But
Yeah.
at the same time, obviously things had to be revealed.
Yeah, and he had this diary of Laura's, and she said, "Shouldn't you
Yeah.
take that to the police?" And he's like, "No, I've read it. There's nothing in it, but there is." So he was,
Yeah.
holding on to something there. The one thing that it's a minor thing, but I always noticed that when he realizes she's betrayed him, and Maddie's there
Yeah.
to kind of steal the diary, and he pulls up one of his his gardening, hooks, and he claws it down his face. So with the advent of high definition, you can tell that the three pronged claw thing already has the blood applicated on it,
Yeah.
and so as he's holding it there, it kind of rubs off in his face before he does the thing, and so a bit of blood already appears, and it's kind of and then in the next episode, it's like a properly done makeup gouge or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's one of those little things where sometimes high definition reveals things that distract. At least me. I know some people just don't see that stuff.
So we've also had a new mysterious character appear. Not too mysterious, maybe.
Let me guess.
Mr.
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 Tajimura.
However, in saying that,
Yeah.
I did not know who it turned out to be. I just knew it wasn't. I knew it wasn't a male character.
Yeah, you wouldn't get away with that now, would you? It's certainly
Absolutely not. No.
no. Yeah, I'd like to.
Definitely of its time.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, so one thing that gets me is okay. So Catherine Martell, who's cosplaying as this Japanese businessman from Tokyo. I don't know how she got all these connections, because she comes to Benjamin Horne and it's like, I want to give you all this money and get involved in the Ghostwood project, and then he goes and has it double checked in Japan, and it's all where did she find the time to create and construct this massive just to fuck with him? I don't know. But of course you didn't realize, but there's a scene at a bar in the Great Northern where Pete's there and Tojimura's there, and they're kind of having this interaction. And that put a smile on my face, because it was the first time me seeing it and remembering that it was Catherine. But yeah,
Pete's reaction as well was really sweet, wasn't it? When he found out,
yeah,
they just sort of embraced, didn't they?
Yeah, he just kind of just laughed, and when he realized, and in general, when you first see Pete kind of react to he comes home, he's got the lung issue from the fire, and they say that her body hasn't been found. I really liked that scene where he's going like, she was hell to live with, and whatever. But then he kind of says, but I'll whatever he said, he breaks down a little bit, and it was quite touching, Definitely a fractured relationship, but one that you can tell has meant a lot to him.
We've also got Josie that's now seemed to have left the show.
Yeah, yeah.
So whether or not she comes back, I don't know. I don't really feel that her coming back really adds anything.
That was kind of I've completely forgotten about that too, where Truman is kind of begging her not to leave, and then he tells her that he loves her and stuff, and really feel for the guy because
Mm,
it felt like that took a lot for him to say because he is
yeah,
such a reserved kind of guy, and you feel like he's not kind of the person to be throwing his heart around willy nilly. So it
yeah,
was quite sad to see that. Um, the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Lucy Andy saga and the
yeah.
baby, and then the introduction of one of my favorite side characters, Dick Germain, who is just like that fucking that smile that he's just he's just such a brilliant like British toff. Like he's such a twat, but he's a brilliantly performed twat.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know, and where it goes from here is just ridiculous, really, and it's just one of those things. But I've always had a soft spot for Dick Tremaine. What are your thoughts on that and the whole that Andy? We find out that he had a test done, and so and that actually ties into. Remember, you said you wished he'd been like, yes, I'm going to be a dad.
Yeah,
Now we know why he didn't do that because he knew that he was sterile, and so he
yeah,
knew that that meant that she'd been with someone else, and that's why he
yeah.
reacted
That's
like
it.
that.
Yeah, it all makes
That's good.
sense now, doesn't it? So,
Yeah,
yeah, yes. It's there are a couple that I really like to see get together in the show. Obviously, they've had their ups and downs so far, and we don't really know whether it's not his baby or not now at this point because he's had a test come back to say that he can have kids.
yeah.
I can't remember what that line was he said.
Oh, I know.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
it just says it in the station out loud, doesn't he? I can't remember what it
I
was.
know. If I could scroll through just to find it, probably not. But yeah,
Yeah, it made me smile.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, also we've now met David Lynch's character,
Yes, Gordon Cole.
Gordon Cole. Yeah, really interested. It's got a hearing problem, so he talks very loud.
Yeah,
I really liked his character actually.
yeah. There's definitely elements of just Cooper in general that feels very like David Lynch, and so you kind of almost get like double Cooper effect, and you have that when they come across each other and they do the double thumbs up and stuff. And
Yeah,
I like the scene where he's like Lynch is leaving the sheriff station. He says goodbye to everyone and stuff, and it just felt like to me he loves the show so much. He wanted to do a scene where he interacted with everyone before he left, so that was kind of fun, and we do see him later on again, so that's something to look forward to. I like Gordon Cole. He's I won't say too much.
yeah,
It's difficult to not jump the gun.
yeah. Of course. So we've
Yeah,
now got Ben and Jerry. Ben,
yeah,
we
yeah.
now we've now got Ben locked up under suspicion of murdering
Of course, yeah.
Sarah Palmer.
Mm.
Um,
Laura Palmer.
fucking hell, man,
Yeah, yeah.
Laura Palmer.
Hmm.
Um, everything's pointing at him. Obviously you know what happens, but I don't know where it's going now. We've left it where we're at the restaurant at the end, or the bar. We've got the singing going on, which is beautiful music.
Yeah, so we'll get into that then. I think it's the seventh episode. I mean, it's another Lynch directed episode, and it shows and it feels like it. But that last 10 minutes to me
Mm,
is just incredible, and it starts with I think Sarah Palmer crawling down the stairs, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on?
yeah,
And it's a bit of foreshadowing there at the very beginning of the episode where it's Maddie telling Leland and Sarah that she's decided she's going to go home, and she's kind
yeah,
of, and the camera slowly pans past the record player in a
yeah,
very long, and that obviously the record player comes in, and that sound, that ding ding ding
yeah,
ding the record that's reached the end, but it's still going. And then there's also the ambient sound building up, and Sarah's crawling across the floor, and then you just see Leland stood there,
yeah.
and it's fucking hell. It's so fucking good. Like just the build up of that.
It is actually terrifying, isn't it? Really terrifying.
It's unsettling. It's really, and then you have the roadhouse with Cooper and the log lady Truman, and then Julie Cruz is there singing, and then suddenly she disappears, and the giant is there, and
Yeah,
he says, "It is happening again."
Yeah.
Cooper is caught there, not knowing what that means. He's leaning forward, and then we come back, and then we see him putting the gloves on, and then we see Bob in the reflection. Um, and they kind of do a really striking thing where it's close up on Leland's face, and then Bob superimposed onto it.
Yeah.
And then we have the mirror, where obviously there must be a two-way thing going on, where the actor who plays Bob is on the other side, but you see the reflection at the same time. So yeah, what were your thoughts of the reveal of Bob and Leland and that implication at that moment?
That was one of those moments where my jaw dropped
Yeah,
because I really did not suspect Leland slightly at all. Obviously, it was all pointing towards Benjamin Horn. So that was the way my head was going. Did not suspect Leland whatsoever. In
yeah.
hindsight, obviously the white hair, all that sort of stuff, it all makes sense now.
Yeah, I remember at the end of season one, there was a moment where Leland comes into the sheriff's department and it kind of focuses on his face and he looks really sinister. And I was like, oh shit, like they go into it already. Because maybe I'd forgotten. But really,
Yeah.
it was him building up to him going to find Jacques Renault to kill him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it feels so different from the very beginning, knowing what Leland did. Um, but I love that you went. I just kept thinking he's got to suspect Leland from some of this stuff, and I think the obsession of the dancing with Laura, and he's holding the frame, and he's so intense with it and stuff. I think it'll be interesting one day when you go back
Yeah.
and see how you feel about that, because it really does completely recontextualize it once And
I think
I didn't really suspect him the first time around.
I think a lot of it for me came across as grief, especially when he falls
Of
onto the
course,
coffin and stuff like that, and him holding the picture and dancing around. It's just him showing the grief of
yeah.
losing his daughter. For me, that's how it felt. So to see that with different vision now is like really messed up. The way he was acting and the reason the way he was acting because he was possessed by Bob. Um,
And do you remember that line that you brought up when he's on the coffin crying and Sarah leans over him and says, "Don't ruin this too."
yeah,
Like, oh, like, and then like, well, I mean, we get into that, like the whole backstory of what went on and exactly, and the movie, of course, deals with that in much bigger detail.
yeah,
Um, but still, I would say this isn't really spoiling anything to say that there isn't really a definitive answer to, okay, because people feel differently about it. People feel like, okay, Leland did all this stuff, because and Lynch has said himself, like, people were uncomfortable with the incest thing of all, like, abusing his daughter, but
yeah,
he says this goes on in the world, it happens.
yeah,
And then so some people think that Leland did that, and then because he was doing evil things, it allowed Bob to enter him and possess him and heighten everything. Some people
yeah.
believe that Bob was just this pure evil entity, that Leland was completely innocent and was corrupted by him. So there's different ways of looking at it, and there isn't really a concrete answer to that. But
I'd be really interested to find out if there is any more discovery in terms of Bob as to kind of if he was once a person and this person had been done for I don't know, and he was a murderer and he was a rapist and all this sort of stuff, and it'd be interesting to find out if that's a thing. But maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. But there is also the mystery aspect, and Lynch wanted you to figure that out for yourself, I guess.
yeah, and there's a big element throughout all the Twin Peaks of you know, however you feel it is that's the way, and he very much encourages that, like, whatever it is to you is the right answer.
The big thing for me at the moment though is still the owls are not what they seem. There's still this big thing for me, and it's 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 I really want to discover what that's all about because we know about Bob now, but what's it got to do with owls? Do you know what I mean?
There are more owls to come, I'll say that. Whether that'll be satisfying or not remains to be seen. But so we're kind of in the middle of that whole sequence there, and then obviously we get the actual moment where Maddie comes down and he kills her. It's one of those things where it's like, it's so violent and it feels so much more brutal than it actually is. Like, what he does is, I think he punches her 3 times, and rams
Yeah.
her head into a picture frame, and there's some blood and
Yeah.
a bit of glass. By standards of films that we've seen, probably more
Mm.
films that you've seen, the brutality, the violence, the gore, really very minimal, but the intent behind it,
Yeah.
and it is brutal. It just is, and the fact they got away with that on TV is quite remarkable, really. And
Absolutely.
the spinning camera where it's fading between Bob and Leland, and Bob is like sucking on her face, and Leland is just holding tight to her and stuff, and just keeps saying Laura, and it's just the implication of it and the intensity of it. It's just
Really, really disturbing, isn't it?
gets under your skin, and then from there we go back to the Roadhouse, and this was like at this point I had the lights turned off and I was zoned in, and I knew that I loved this scene. But for me, it's that emotion afterwards when Cooper's there, knowing something's happened, but he's helpless, and maybe he has enjoyed Twin Peaks too much, and maybe he has, partaken in donuts when he should have been, focusing more on the case, and maybe he's lapsed a little bit, and he's off saving Audrey or whatever it is, and he's going off the book, and now the killer has struck again,
Yeah.
and that feeling and that song, The World Spins, that's playing, and then everyone in the bar, or at least some people like Bobby and Donna, start getting emotional. It's like they're feeling the weight of something bad has happened. And
Yeah.
then Cooper's got like almost tears in his eyes, and he just looks stoically up as if he just doesn't know what to think. Like, is this giant real? Has something really terrible happened again? And have I let this happen? That's how I feel, about
Yeah.
the scene. And I rolled a few tears. It was really powerful.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite scenes of anything ever. That whole 10-minute stretch.
Yeah. Cooper always seems to be like one step behind for everything that's going on, like from the dreams and him trying to figure everything out. And by the time he's figured it out, it's usually too late. So
Yeah,
it's
it's a weird thing because he is so switched on, and he does
mm,
get things right a lot of the time. But yeah, there's definitely there's because he's on one hand this very by the book guy, and on the other hand he's, as we said before, like is relying on dream intuition
yeah,
and he takes that shit seriously. You know what I mean? He's a very
yeah.
strange guy in that sense, and but I just think that song is such a mournful piece, and yeah, it just that whole episode's great. Um,
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to add about that scene, or anything else that we've seen so far, or future
Yeah,
speculation?
I remember you saying that the that Lynch actually wrote that song. And we said how much it sounded like a song from the time that, could have quite easily been in the charts at the time.
Yeah,
Works so well for the scene. And the giant turning back up and the old man being in the bar. It harkened again to a dream sequence.
yes, and it's like that element is now even more so merging with the real world, kind
mm,
of,
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, then that that bit where the old man comes up and he says, "I'm so sorry," and it's like, fuck. That's a random bit that I read actually, in there's a really good book interview with Lynch, and he said that what he really liked about his favorite part about that sequence is actually, or at least in the Roadhouse, is Bobby, because he was not supposed to be in that scene, but the actor was there on the day, and Lynch was like, "We'll get in there, like we'll do something." And he sat at the bar and he just turns around and you just see him getting emotional, or feeling moved by something. And so Lynch really loved just the spontaneity of that, and then Donna obviously starts breaking down crying because she feels like she's responsible for this guy's death, Harold,
yeah.
and so all this emotion is just like broiling up, and oh, it's good shit,
Such a
man.
great episode. Great episode.
Yeah.
So knowing what you know now, is this where it starts to taper off, or
No, next 2 to 3 episodes it maintains a pretty good intrigue, and
yeah,
there's more good stuff to come. Oh, and one of my favorite scenes is when Leland's been arrested, and we open the episode in the sheriff's department, and the camera's coming through the holes through the ceiling, and
mm,
it's like, what's this? And then suddenly we're in the interrogation room, and he admits to killing Jacques Renault. Amazing performance, where he's talking about the grief that he's feeling,
Yeah.
And he says something like every cell screams, deep inside, and there's tears just rolling down his face as he's doing it. And then he admits that he killed Jacques Renault, and maybe that is a great way to throw you off the scent, because it's this big
Yeah.
emotional moment where he feels so bad about killing Jacques Renault. So um, that's interesting, and yeah. But yeah, that's the next few episodes. There's some good shit to come. Then it starts to then it starts to taper off a bit, and we can kind of relax a bit and just enjoy the vibes of Twin Peaks. That
Yeah.
as it meanders along.
But no, I'm really looking forward to getting back into it because we've had a few days break now, haven't we, since we last watched the last few episodes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm definitely gonna stick a couple on tomorrow, I think.
Yeah, and one final thing, because I was surprised that I did roll a few tears and got so emotionally affected by that last stretch of the episode. And it's this the song is the real thing, and it's because ever since that time I watched the episode, I've listened to that song like hundreds of times. Like I love that song, and now I go back to where it came from, and in context of everything else, it was just perfect.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes you get a really nice marriage of visuals and the audio, one, the song, and then two, like the ambient build up towards that murder was just,
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing. He's a good filmmaker.
Absolutely. This is
Yeah.
where I can't wait to dig into the rest of his films.
Yeah, and I was talking to you, just messaging how, like, to me Blue Velvet feels a bit like a prequel to Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Carl McLaughlin is the lead character, and he feels like a kind of there's a mystery that he's investigating. It feels like the prequel to Cooper's story, and then same composer, same feeling and stuff. A bit different,
Yeah.
obviously, but there's definitely a link there between the two, I think. But yeah, it's nice to get back to the Lynch stuff, because I went through a really heavy period of watching all this stuff, and it's been quite a while for me of watching anything that he's done. So
Yeah.
it's good to get back into it. All right, so we'll leave it there. I guess it's just only a quote left, unless there's anything else you want to add. If there's anything else, anything we haven't touched on that you feel that you can
Don't
remember.
think so, no.
No, we did pretty good. We covered a lot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
for all the little bits and pieces.
For how many episodes we actually got through, we did quite well.
Yeah.
There was the horse vision.
Yes.
Which I didn't quite get that. I think, or maybe I forgot the context of it, but I just remembered the horse vision.
Well,
I don't know if there was any context to it.
The context is that Sarah sees it. Beyond that,
Okay, understood.
yeah, well, we might interpret that in different ways. Anyway, so we'll leave this with a quote, and then we'll come back again after another few episodes and another pivotal moment in the story. What quote shall I do? I was thinking of memorizing that song that Leland sings. Maresy dotes and dozy dotes and little lambsy divey, a kiddly divey too, wouldn't you? But I think
you did well to remember that.
but I think I'll go with this. I'll go. I'm so sorry. That'll be my quote. It's a great moment that I just love it's like, oh, that guy, and then the way he saunters over. It's like it's like he knows something. And Carl McLaughlin plays it perfectly. Like, it's just, fucking great episode.
The way I interpreted the old guy was that it may be some form of the giant.
Almost. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, so just talk about that a little bit, and then we'll end.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. So, I never thought of that. It's a cool read. I like that.
Yeah, so when Cooper's shot, obviously, we get the old man and the giant then appears afterwards. We get that same two characters in the same space.
Yeah.
Again later in the Roadhouse. And we get the same interactions from both characters. So it made me think, maybe is this old man the old version of this younger giant in the show, maybe? Or I don't know, it just came across to me that they were quite similar characters. And they were both in those same two locations. So it made me wonder, is this old man like a reincarnated version of the giant, maybe? Or
wow, that's interesting. Yeah.
It really,
Yeah,
really made me think. But like you said, Lynch likes to leave it open to interpretation, doesn't he? So I'm
sure, yeah.
assuming we never find anything out about that. But I just found it interesting the
Yeah,
way I
we
interpreted it.
we don't.
Yeah.
But I like it. It's interesting, and it's a good point that they do both appear in the same scene, and it isn't really clear that. Well, it's definitely clear that no one else sees the giant but Cooper. But as far as the old man, oh no, they do mention Albert mentions him, doesn't he? He says that there was this senior drool cup or something, and he talks about like this old man who doesn't know anything. So I guess he is kind of a real character, but there's obviously something else going on there. I don't know. There's definitely with Twin Peaks, the search for a logical conclusion will drive you nuts. I think sometimes
I've, I've just thought of something else.
a lot of it is about feel, how it makes you feel more than like lining up the logical dots. But go on.
Well, there's all these entities that go into characters that we've
Yeah.
found so far. Maybe the giant is an entity inside of the old man.
Oh, wow. That's cool. I like that. I do like that actually. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah. I like that. That's cool. We'll end with that, and we'll mull that over, and then we'll come back soon. So thank you all for watching or listening if you have, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.